Hi everyone, I'm Jendi Burwell. I'm the priest in charge at Albany Greenhithe Anglican Church. It is Thursday morning, Thursday in Holy Week, so we're getting closer and closer to Easter, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In 2022. It is a stunning day in Auckland today, weather-wise. Today, Holy Thursday, Thursday in the week leading up to Easter, is another big day. Okay, so it's the second longest recording in Mark. As you recall, we are looking through this book. Details each day of this week as per Mark's Gospel. And Tuesday was a really long day. Today is the next longest. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my thoughts, and then I'm actually going to read all of today's scripture from Mark so that those in our community who may want to hear the whole reading can do so. Those that don't can always just stop the YouTube. So my thoughts today being Maundy Thursday, priests and lay licensed people in the Anglican and I guess other traditions today will gather all together to renew our vows, our commitments to holy orders. We will get new blessed oils and stuff today, so there'll be a bunch of us at the cathedral in Parnell, and some would have gone to an event in Whangarei on Tuesday. So that's happening shortly. And tonight we will gather at 4:30 to read the scriptures together in community if people are able to come to Holy Cross in Albany for that. If not, they'll be recorded here and you can listen to them wherever you are. An interesting thing about today, and I'm trying to keep these short, but it's hard, is to bear in mind all of the Gospels. Okay, so those of you who have been following this know I did not grow up in church. So there's a lot I've had to learn, and it's been an adventure. As you may know, we changed our worldwide calendar, well, most of the worldwide calendar, around, Jesus' death and stuff. Used to be called BC, before Christ, and then AD, after death. Now is more known as BCE, before Common Era, and then CE, Common Era. However, I'm 48, and so when I grew up, it was AD. We were now in after death time. I think it had a fancier name. And so I had always assumed that this Jesus fella must have died in 0, because, AD, surely that happened in year 0. Turns out, scholars have dated Jesus' death at about 30, maybe 35 AD or CE. Okay, so really it all seems to have changed at his birth, or near enough. But that aside, 30 to 35 CE is when Jesus died. And so these stories in Mark are about that event, okay? Now, Mark, the Gospel of Mark, was written about 70 CE, so 35 to 40 years after the event. Then Matthew was written maybe 10, maybe 20 years after that. Then Luke was maybe a few years after Matthew. Okay, so, just a few after Matthew perhaps. Maybe 5 after Matthew. And then John was written perhaps another 5-ish years after that. So in summary, Jesus may have died about year 30. Mark may have been written about year 70. Then Matthew in 80, Luke in 85, and then John around 90 or 100 CE. So bear in mind, this is a long period of time for these stories, these narratives, the reason they were being written, who they were being written to, different bits added, some stuff taken away. And we need to hold that loosely. I'm not saying they're not true. I'm not saying they're not like very good scholarly written things. But let's just, these are not digitally recorded, live YouTube clips when the event actually happened. So there is something about Thursdays in our tradition that often will happen. Two things often, and some churches will alternate between them. So one year there might be a foot washing ceremony. Okay, so feet get washed, and based on it being recorded in the Gospels that Jesus did that to his disciples. Okay? And the other thing that often may happen is a Seder meal. So in Jewish Passover, there'll be the Seder meal to remember the Exodus from slavery and stuff. Nowadays, it seems to be not really okay for Christians to kind of do a Jewish Seder meal without any real understanding, and it just seems a bit icky. The foot washing thing is really intriguing because it is not in Mark's Gospel. Mark was written first, and it's 35 to 40 years after the event. But then the other Gospels are later and written by different people for different reasons, and they've got different bits in and different bits out. But the foot washing thing does not appear until these later Gospels, and it is added to and made bigger and bigger by the time we get to the John Gospel. So we are not doing a foot washing because this year we're going through Mark's Gospel day by day, and it's not in there. A little sneaky look forward to tomorrow before I read all of today's scriptures. Good Friday. Good. There might be a whole lot of things around in various churches and traditions, and they are good things, okay? Don't hear me wrong about the 7 sayings of Jesus from the cross, the 7 things Jesus said as he died. Those 7 sayings are a composite. So there's one, I think, in Mark. There's a couple more added on in Matthew. Some other things come out in John, etc. Across the 4 Gospels, there are 7 things recorded. Those 7 things are not in any one Gospel. So when you hear the 7 things that Jesus said, that is a composite. Okay, so this is tradition, this is ritual, this is stuff that, 2,000 years has gone by since, and they are good things to hear and remember, but they're not from one telling of the story. So back to today being Thursday, and there is no foot washing in the scriptures I am about to read. Before you stop, if you're going to leave us, Tomorrow on Friday, 9 a.m, we will be at Holy Cross in Albany, and you would be very welcome to join us. I will record a little thingy for those that are unable to join us. Maybe you're a long way away. Anyhow, if you're leaving, God bless. I will now read the scriptures from Mark for today, Thursday. They are Mark 14, and it is verses 12 all the way through to 72. Now, one thing to bear in mind, please, is in your mind as you hear it, picture it happening. So at some point they're in this room and they're having supper, and then they leave and they go somewhere else and something else happens, and then the scene, if you like, turns to Peter and something else happening somewhere else. So in your mind, see it as a scene, as a movie, as a narrative, and follow the action, and just note what's happening where. And there ain't no foot washing today. And foot washing is awesome, okay? So I'm all for it. Leaders and elders and powerful people serving others and washing their feet. It is not about going to church to have your feet washed because you deserve it, or it's your right, or if you're a leader, a disciple, a Christ person now, being like Christ, you are washing the feet of the least, and you're serving others. So it's a good thing to bear in mind, but it ain't in today's gospel. So let us hear it all. It was the first day of the festival of thin bread, and the Passover lambs were being killed. Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to prepare the Passover meal?" Jesus said to two of the disciples, "Go into the city where you will meet a man carrying a jar of water. Follow him, and when he goes into a house, say to the owner, 'Our teacher wants to know if you have a room where he can eat the Passover meal with his disciples.' The owner will take you upstairs and show you a large room, furnished and ready for you to use. Prepare the meal there." The two disciples went into the city and found everything just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover meal. While Jesus and the 12 disciples were eating together that evening, he said, "The one who will betray me is now eating with me." This made the disciples sad. And one after another, they said to Jesus, "You surely don't mean me." He answered, "It is one of you 12 men who is eating from this dish with me. The Son of Man will die, just as the scriptures say. But it is going to be terrible for the one who betrays me. That man would be better off if he had never been born." During the meal, Jesus took some bread in his hands. He blessed the bread and broke it. Then he gave it to his disciples and said, "Take it. It is my body." Jesus picked up a cup of wine and gave thanks to God. He gave it to his disciples, and they all drank some. Then he said, "This is my blood, which is poured out for many people. and with it God makes his agreement. From now on, I will not drink any wine until I drink new wine in God's kingdom. Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus said to his disciples, "All of you will reject me, as the scriptures say. I will strike down the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised to life, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter spoke up. "Even if all the others reject you, I never will." Jesus replied, "This very night, before a rooster crows twice, you will say 3 times that you don't know me." But Peter was so sure of himself that he said, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never say I don't know you." All the others said the same thing. Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he told them, "Sit here while I pray." Jesus took along Peter, James, and John. He was sad and troubled and told them, "I am so sad that I feel as if I am dying. Stay here and keep awake with me." Jesus walked on a little way. Then he knelt down on the ground and prayed, "Father, if it is possible, don't let this happen to me." "Father, you can do anything. Don't make me suffer by drinking from this cup. But do what you want and not what I want." When Jesus came back and found the disciples sleeping, he said to Simon Peter, "Are you asleep? Can't you stay awake for just 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you won't be tested. You want to do what is right, but you are weak." Jesus went back and prayed the same prayer. But when he returned to the disciples, he found them sleeping again. They simply could not keep their eyes open, and they did not know what to say. When Jesus returned to the disciples the 3rd time, he said, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough of this. The time has come for the Son of Man to be handed over to sinners. Get up. Let's go. The one who will betray me is already here." Jesus was still speaking when Judas the betrayer came up. He was one of the 12 disciples, and a mob of men armed with swords and clubs were with him. They had been sent by the chief priests, the nation's leaders, and the teachers of the law of Moses. Judas had told them ahead of time, "Arrest the man I greet with a kiss. Tie him up tight and lead him away." Judas walked right up to Jesus and said, "Teacher." Then Judas kissed him. And the men grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Someone standing there pulled out a sword. He struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Jesus said to the mob, "Why do you come with swords and clubs to arrest me like a criminal? Day after day I was with you and taught in the temple, and you didn't arrest me." But what the scriptures say must come true. All of Jesus' disciples ran off and left him. One of them was a young man who was wearing only a linen cloth, and when the men grabbed him, he left the cloth behind and ran away naked. But Jesus was led off to the high priest. Then the chief priests, the nation's leaders, and the teachers of the law of Moses all met together. Peter had followed at a distance, and when he reached the courtyard of the high priest's house, he sat down with the guards to warm himself by a fire. The chief priests and the whole council tried to find someone to accuse Jesus of a crime, so that then they could put him to death. But they couldn't find anyone to accuse him. Many people did tell lies against Jesus, but they did not agree on what they'd said. Finally, some men stood up and lied about him. They said, "We heard him say he would tear down this temple that we built. He also claimed that in 3 days he would build another one without any help." But even then, they did not agree on what he had said. The high priest stood up in the council and asked Jesus, "Why don't you say something in your defense? Don't you hear the charges they are making against you?" But Jesus kept quiet and did not say a word. The high priest asked him another question. "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the glorious God?" "Yes, I am," Jesus answered. "Soon you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right side of God's all-powerful and coming with the clouds of heaven." At once the high priest ripped his robe apart and shouted, "Why do we need more witnesses? You heard him claim to be God. What is your decision?" They all agreed he should be put to death. Some of the people started spitting on Jesus. They blindfolded him, hit him with their fists, and said, "Tell us who hit you." Then the guards took charge of Jesus and beat him. While Peter was still in the courtyard, a servant girl of the high priest came up and saw Peter warming himself by the fire. She stared at him and said, "You were with Jesus from Nazareth." Peter replied, "That's not true. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any idea what you mean." He went out to the gate and a rooster crowed. The servant girl saw Peter again and said to the people standing there, "This man is one of them." "No, I'm not," Peter replied. A little while later, some of the people said to Peter, "You certainly are one of them. You're a Galilean." This time Peter began to curse and swear, "I don't even know the man you're talking about." At once the rooster crowed a second time. Then Peter remembered that Jesus had told him, "Before a rooster crows twice, you will say 3 times that you don't know me." So Peter started crying. And that is the end of the scriptures from Mark for today, Thursday. Read from the CEV version, so other versions have slightly different words. There is a lot in it. Jesus is referring back in some stuff to Old Testament ancient prophecies. I just want to make it really clear. There is a lot to unpack in coming with the clouds of heaven. Soon you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. Don't mistake that for some literal thing later. There's a lot of work to understand that. However, for today, bear in mind tomorrow when we meet at Holy Cross, technically it is a gathering that has continued from tonight. So technically, probably shouldn't have a welcome and shouldn't have some of the stuff that we will do at the beginning. It's not ideal, however, we're trying to do the best we can to experience this whole week as a community, knowing that some will only come on Friday, some will only come on Sunday. Some will have listened to these YouTubes and got the flow of the whole week. 2,000 odd years later, we are doing our best as a community to remember the story of Jesus, to take it into our lives and then live that out here in the 21st century. It is not a perfect recreation. It never could be, and nor should it be. We're all doing our best to walk this week and then walk into, tomorrow, always. So all that being said, whatever today, Maundy Thursday in Holy Week, the day before Jesus is killed, the day Jesus is arrested and his 12 male disciples, because there are other disciples, desert him and leave him. So much is happening. So much has happened, is happening, and will happen. In the meantime, God bless, and we will see you again on YouTube tomorrow morning and in person whenever we can. Take care. See ya.